A man nervously pulled out a letter, carefully opening the envelope with a knife and fork. This was no ordinary piece of mail. Boldly written across the page was 911, accompanied by a small amount of white powder. This tiny cluster of powder had once plunged America into an even deeper terror than the 9/11 attacks. This white substance was the infamous anthrax biological weapon. Anthrax, originally an ancient virus, causes skin lesions that resemble black charcoal when a patient is infected. Its natural mortality rate isn't particularly high. However, when weaponized and inhaled, the survival rate drops to nearly zero. What makes anthrax truly terrifying is its extraordinary resilience. It's incredibly difficult to eradicate completely. Even though the contaminated areas were covered with cement, the virus remained highly contagious for decades. This is precisely why it's often referred to as the poor man's nuclear weapon. Back in 1979, the Soviet Union experienced an anthrax leak that killed 68 nearby residents. Fortunately, the wind didn't blow the spores toward the city. Had it done so, the death toll could have reached over 300,000. At the time, the Soviets were producing 300 pounds of anthrax spores annually for biological warfare. On the day of the 9/11 attacks, an elderly man was rushed to the hospital. He was experiencing severe vomiting, with all his bodily organs failing. Doctors detected a liver-like virus in his cerebrospinal fluid and suspected anthrax. They immediately contacted FBI agent Ray. Agent Ray had already received a biological attack warning from an informant 3 weeks earlier. He quickly reached out to Dr. Simon at Fort Detrick, sending part of the patient's samples for virus testing. Meanwhile, medical staff investigated the infection source. The patient's family recalled he had drunk water from a wild river, a decision they now deeply regretted. The test results from Fort Detrick confirmed everyone's worst fears. It was indeed the anthrax virus. Even the FBI director couldn't ignore this development. Typically, 95% of anthrax infections occur through skin contact and aren't fatal. But this was an inhalation case, extremely rare and suggesting deliberate weaponization. The bizarre part? The victim was just a retired old man living in a remote small town. Why would someone use such a high-level biological weapon against such a vulnerable target? As the patient's condition deteriorated, doctors informed the family about the anthrax exposure. They provided a notification device to alert the family if his condition worsened. Soon, the media broke the story of the first inhalation anthrax patient. Politicians attempted to downplay the incident, attributing the infection to the patient's river water consumption and urging the public not to panic. However, Bruce, an agency expert watching on television, wore a skeptical smirk. Returning to the Fort Detrick office, Bruce caught a glimpse of a shadowy figure and gave chase. But the soldiers he encountered claimed to have seen no one. Looking at the scattered documents and the computer with its input password, Bruce began to suspect an inside job. Meanwhile, Agent Ray contacted the patient's former supervisor, inquiring about recent employees' sick leaves. After making some calls, the supervisor confirmed that another employee had indeed shown suspicious symptoms.